Mm. How's everybody doing? I wanted to share some thoughts that I had on some of the readings I've been doing lately. Um, Rudolf Steiner did a series of lectures in 1924, um, ironically, the year before he died. And the whole topic for 6 weeks was really understanding what the human is predisposed to from past life experiences, um, specifically around healing, disease. How does karma manifest itself into this reality? How do some people heal from Western medicine and some people don't? How come some people can be going through the exact same affliction, the same issues, the same disease, the same viruses, and completely react differently and heal differently than the individual next to them? And based on anthroposophical work, which is the study and relationship of man, which is where Rudolf Steiner took theosophy, he goes deep into understanding how karma plays a specific role to how we heal, and how the gnosis of understanding your own karma greatly affects your own radical deterioration into nothingness, or your liberation into all forms of healing in the material and ethereal sense. So it's really fascinating to get his perspective, which resonates deeply with my own divinity and my own perspective on how we go through life, and how we take on outside entities in the forms of disease, in the forms of malnourishment, in the forms of pain, and how we blast through those, or we sit in that misery and let that define us, and let that be basically the crutch for the rest of our life. I'm going to read a few passages from here. Let me just see. Thoughts on healing myopia. Yeah, well, this is the whole thing here. Sorry. A lot of noise in my house right now. I got a bunch of kids here. Miasms. How do we, you have a family member 3 lineages up that, committed an atrocity or committed suicide or went through some kind of extreme situation that could be seen as a miasm that translates into your reality, and you got to carry on that lineage of karma. Whether you believe in the cosmic identification of karma or you believe in the material aspect of karma, either way, something gets transferred and energy gets shifted. If you go and hurt somebody on the street, it's very likely that their family member or someone they know is going to come back and retaliate on some capacity. That is a form of karma, and that's an energy that plays out. Once things get opened up, things have to finish at some point in some capacity. It's the same thing with, something that could have happened thousands of years ago. If nothing has been completed, then that same karma keeps playing out, and that poison and that vibration has to keep running. It's an energy. Let me read this passage, and then I'm going to answer some questions. It's very fascinating that you can't find this book. It's not something that is out in the bookshelves. I was in New York with my cousin David Wolf, and we were actually in a sauna discussing Ahrimanic and Luciferian energies, and really relating it to the reality we are right now, because we're in this really defined scientific material construct, and how it's almost taking over the narrative of the directional pattern of where humanity is going. We're defined by the technological era. We're defined by the Industrial Revolution. We're defined by television. We're defined by theater. We're defined by things that you can touch and feel, and what what are the beauty of some of those aspects, and what are the downsides of some of those aspects? And then he busted out this book, The Manifestations of Karma, and we just dropped in. I mean, we went so deep. We were in there for hours. We're in the middle of New York City in a penthouse, I don't know, 60 stories above the motionless earth, and we're reading in a sauna, reading about the manifestations of karma, talking about Ahrimanic influences. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Okay, so let me read this. There was, however, one point or aspect which are repeatedly emphasized by this particular school of medicine, although they had no means of proving it and had not even had the words to describe exactly the content of their conception. They repeatedly affirmed that there must be in man some element which determines the appearance and the course of his illness, and which is fundamentally beyond the reach of any human intervention. So let me read that line again, and then I'll go into it again. Although they had no means of proving it, and had not even the words to describe exactly the content of their conception, they repeatedly affirmed that there must be in man some element which determines the appearance and the course of his illness, and which is fundamentally beyond the reach of any human intervention. It's fundamentally beyond the reach of any human intervention. And they researched this over and over and over. They did studies. Thus, a reference was made to something beyond human aid. And if one really goes to the bottom of these things, this indication cannot relate to anything other than the law of karma and its activity in human life. If means of proving it, and had not even had the words to describe exactly the content of their conception, they repeatedly affirmed that there must be in man some element which determines the appearance and the course of his illness, and which is fundamentally beyond the reach of any human intervention. So let me read that line again, and then I'll go into it again. Although they had no means of proving it, and had not even the words to describe exactly the content of their conception, they repeatedly affirmed that there must be in man some element which determines the appearance and the course of his illness, and which is fundamentally beyond the reach of any human intervention. It's fundamentally beyond the reach of any human intervention. And they researched this over and over and over. They did studies. Thus, a reference was made to something beyond human aid. And if one really goes to the bottom of these things, this indication cannot relate to anything other than the law of karma and its activity in human life. If we follow the course of a disease in human life, how it develops, and how the healing powers spring forth from the organism itself, if we follow the process of healing impartially, particularly if we reflect how in one case a cure takes place, while in another it fails, we shall then be driven to search for a deeper law determining this. Can this deeper law be sought for in the previous earth life of man, in my previous past life? That is a question for all of us. Can we say that a person brings with him certain predispositions, which in one particular case called forth the healing powers from his organism, but which in another case, in spite of every effort, held these forces back? Think about that. Let me read that sequence one more time. Thus, a reference was made to something beyond human aid. And if one really goes to the bottom of these things, this indication cannot relate to anything other than the law of karma and its activity in human life. If we follow the course of a disease in human life, how it develops, and how the healing powers spring forth from the organism itself, if we follow the process of healing impartially, particularly if we reflect how in one case a cure takes place, while in another it fails miserably, we shall then be driven to search for a deeper law determining this. Can this deeper law be sought for in the previous earth life of a man? That is a question for all of us. Can we say that a person brings with him certain predispositions, which in one particular case called forth the healing powers from his organism, the self-will, it's inside of his veins, it's inside of his heart to heal. And in one other case, in spite of all the efforts, the exact same efforts onto the first man held all the healing forces back. That is extremely fascinating. It will be remembered, and this is Steiner himself talking. This is him speaking to about 300 people. This is in 1924 outside of Zurich. It will be remembered from the last lecture that in the events which take place between death and a new birth, particularly forces are taking into the human individuality. During the period of Kamaloka, which is that in-between stage, Kamaloka, the events of a person's previous life, I'm gonna translate this so it's a little bit easier to understand. A lot of his words are extremely, extremely aggressive and complicated, and they make you go inside to really kind of to translate the true meaning. It's hard to take it on the first go arounds. I've read this several times, so I'm translating this as I'm reading it. During the period in Karmaloka, the events of a person's last life, the good and evil deeds he has done, the qualities of his character, etc., come before his soul. They sit right there, face to face with his soul. And through the vision of his own life, he acquires the tendency to bring about the remedy and the compensation for all that is imperfect in him, and which has manifested as a wrong action. He is moved to acquire those qualities which will bring him nearer to perfection in various directions. He forms intentions and tendencies during the time up to a new birth and goes into existence again with these intentions. Further, he himself works upon the new body which he acquires for his new life, and he builds in conformity with the forces he has brought from previous earthly lives and from the time between death and rebirth. He is furnished with these forces and builds them into his new body. From this, it may be seen that his new body will be weak or strong according to the person is in the position to build weak or strong forces into it. So he has the ability to create the energy, to create the forces, to create the power, and this and the way this is going to work, and the way that we can take from this. So it's kind of like, okay, well, what do you do with this? Well, are we, no matter what, predestined because of our past life, previous lives, the Kamaloka exchange when we were sitting in Kamaloka? Did we inherit that energy? Was that the time to reflect it, or is the time now? Based on his teaching and based on my discernment, what it's telling me is that by being fully aware, being fully conceptualizing the fact that energy is passed on, that this is holographic. Look, this is speaking to the New Age spirituality movement, where everybody's passing on the same lingo, that we are all vibratory energies. We're all coming from the same place. We're all this and that. This is, to be able to acquire new technology from within yourself, you must move from 3D and circumnavigate and jump through 4D and go directly into 5D. By doing those things, you will find ultimate bliss. Look, that's not explaining anything. That's not giving you the tools. That's not giving you the power. It sounds good. It sounds really, really like activating and sounds really beautiful. But look, in order to truly transcend any pain you might have been bestowed upon by previous lives, you need to grasp the information. You need to understand exactly what the concepts are when it comes to furthering energetics that are passed on through lineage, through birth, through death, through experience, through miasms, through atrocities, through rape, pillaging, genocides, murders, all of the crazy stuff that we've been experiencing. I mean, think about it. Like, empirical history has shown us that man is capable of all atrocities and is continuing to act on all atrocities. Believe it or not, a big portion of this earth right now is in full suffering. Humanity has completely lost its way. We are murdering animals 24/7. We are murdering Mother Earth. We are completely out of alignment with who we are, where we are, our purpose, our intention. We're stuck in an Ahrimanic influence, which is guiding every aspect of our reality. And why are we in this position? How did we get here? Well, it's being unaware of where we come from. It's being unaware of what we are. It's being unaware of where we are. It's being unaware of why we are. And we can't just jump on the New Age system of lingos and, commonality choice words. We have to understand the detailed aspects and the possibilities of our existence. And we got to go all the way. I'm going to leave it on this one, but I'm going to continue to start diving deep into the manifestations of karma and giving you more and more insights to everything. Please share this video with everybody that would gain from this. Remember, I'm only here to bring the truth, the absolute truth, and nothing but. I love you.